Let's be real. When you're a parent and you're facing a real crisis with your teenager, we're talking substance misuse, aggressive behavior, it can feel like you are completely lost at sea. All the traditional advice just doesn't work, and you're left feeling totally helpless. Well, today, we're going to dive into a study that looks at a pretty radical new approach for exactly these kinds of high conflict situations.
Okay, so to really get why a new approach is even necessary, we first have to understand just how bad things can get from a parent's point of view. For so many of them, this isn't just a tough phase, it is a living nightmare. Just picture it for a second. Your home, the one place that's supposed to be your family's safe harbor, has turned into a war zone. That's the day-to-day reality for so many families with a teenager who is really, truly spiraling. And that feeling of powerlessness, it's everything. Parents have tried it all. But every conversation becomes a screaming match, the dangerous behavior just keeps going, and they feel like they are failing. That raw desperation is the breaking point that pushes them to look for a totally different kind of help. So why does it feel like everything they do just backfires? Well, there's actually a name for this trap. It's called coercion theory. It's this nasty, vicious cycle. A parent tries to clamp down, to control the behavior. The teen pushes back, but harder, escalating things. Finally, the parent is just exhausted and gives in. And here's the kicker. That accidentally teaches the teen that escalating the conflict actually works. So the very act of trying to grab control makes everything so much worse. And that whole cycle leads us to a really big realization. In these super intense situations, the standard parenting playbook, all the rules and styles we're taught, it doesn't just fall flat, it can actually pour gasoline on the fire. You've probably heard about different parenting styles, right? You've got the strict, my way or the highway authoritarian style, which research tells us can lead to more problem behaviors. And then you have what everyone calls the gold standard, the authoritative style. Clear rules, but with a lot of warmth and communication. But what do you do when even the gold standard isn't working? What the research we're looking at found is that even these really well-respected, proven parenting programs can come up short in these cases. Parents might feel a little more confident at first, but when you look long-term, the conflict and the chaos often creep right back in. And I want to be clear, this is not about the parents failing. It's a huge sign that we need something fundamentally different, not just a new set of rules. So if the old playbook doesn't work, what's left? Well, that something different is a complete mental flip, an idea that actually comes from the world of social and political protest. It's called nonviolent resistance. Okay, so here is the big mind-bending idea. NVR tells parents to stop trying to control their child. I know, that sounds terrifying, totally counterintuitive, but the focus shifts. Instead of trying to control the person, you focus on resisting the destructive behavior. It's a small change in wording, but it is a massive change in strategy. I mean, the difference here is night and day. The old way, trying to control the child, that's a recipe for disaster. It just fuels those endless power struggles. But the NVR way, it's all about de-escalation. The goal isn't to win the fight. It's to build a strong, calm parental presence and, this is huge, to finally realize you cannot do this alone. So what does this actually look like day to day? Well, the NVR program trains parents on a few key moves. First, they make a real plan for how they are going to de-escalate when things get hot. Second, they learn to make these small, positive gestures to start repairing the relationship, to show they still love their child, even if the behavior is not okay. Third, and this is a total game changer, they go out and actively recruit a support network. And finally, they make a formal announcement to their kid, saying very clearly, "We love you, but we will no longer put up with this specific behavior." Now, that all sounds really good in theory, but the million-dollar question is, does it actually work for families who are really on the brink? That's exactly what this study wanted to find out. So, researchers over in the UK set up this 10-week NVR program, and it was specifically for parents whose kids were already in a specialist service for substance misuse. We are not talking about everyday teenage drama here. These were families in a deep crisis. The whole point was to see if this approach could actually move the needle. Now, the study itself was small and really focused. 18 parents took part in the data collection. And you might hear that number and think, that's not very many. But for this kind of in-depth, qualitative research, you're not looking for huge numbers. You're looking for depth. Each parent's story gives us this powerful, detailed look at how this all plays out in the real world. And honestly, this is where the story really comes to life.
Yeah, the numbers are important, but it's the words from the parents themselves that really hit you.
Just listen to this quote from one of the parents. It says everything. I needed to do something. I got to the end. I'd done everything else that I could do. You can just feel the sheer exhaustion in those words, can't you? For these parents, this program wasn't the first thing they tried. For many, it was the absolute last resort. So, after 10 weeks, what happened? The changes were pretty profound. For the first time, many parents felt they weren't alone anymore, which just helped melt away all that shame they'd been carrying. They learned to step back and stop striking while the iron is hot, waiting until things were calm to deal with issues. They felt more confident, way less stressed, and they actually brought in friends and family to help them hold the line. But, and this is so important, it wasn't a magic wand. This quote really highlights one of the big challenges. 10 weeks is just the start. You're just starting to get into the really hard work of changing a family's entire dynamic. This isn't a quick fix. It's the first step in learning a whole new way to be a family. And yeah, the road was definitely bumpy. For some, the program brought up their own past traumas, which made it incredibly emotionally difficult. Others really struggled to get, say, an ex-partner or their own parents to understand and support this new, less confrontational way of doing things. These are the real-world hurdles that make this work so hard, but also so incredibly important. So we've heard these powerful, personal stories of change. But what about the hard data? Do the numbers back it all up? Let's take a look and see the concrete evidence. Okay, check this out, because this is striking. This chart shows the impact on parental confidence, what researchers call self-efficacy. You can see, before the program, the average score was down around 16. After the 10 weeks, boom, it jumped to nearly 21. But here's the coolest part. At the follow-up weeks later, it held steady. They didn't just feel better for a little while. They felt capable again, and that feeling stuck. And what were they hoping to achieve with this new confidence? I mean, these weren't small things. Look at this list. Stop or reduce drug use, get their child to be less aggressive, stop the stealing, just get their kid to come home on time. These are the kinds of fears that keep a parent up all night. So did they actually make any headway? Well, the numbers say a big yes. On a 10-point scale, parents rated how much progress they were making. Before NVR, the average was a 3.5. After the program, it had almost doubled to nearly 6.7. That shows that this new way of doing things led to real, tangible changes in their kids' behavior. Which really brings us to this final, huge idea. The entire NVR approach is built on this. In these incredibly difficult family situations, maybe the only thing we can ever truly control is our own response. And what if, by changing ourselves, we end up changing everything?